Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host, Chad Vaughn, and on today's episode, we have Conor Murphy. Conor has been around the CrossFit community for a number of years, having been a high-level athlete and a coach at Reebok headquarters, as well as an L1 instructor for a number of years. He is now working on some other really cool and big projects. One that you've probably heard before, the WOD on the Waves, which is he's one of the co-founders of, which is a fitness-based cruise that had been going on for a number of years and then had to take a hiatus during the pandemic, but is looking to come back strong in the upcoming year, as well as a new project called Big Night Fitness, which is a part of the Big Night Entertainment Group, which is trying to merge the worlds of nightlife with fitness. A very cool concept that Conor talks about a little bit and what they're excited about doing into the new year. Really excited about having Conor on here. He's one of the funnier guys in the CrossFit community, and we hope you guys enjoy this one. Conor, what's up, man? Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
So how are things going? You know, off the air, you were telling us about some recent travels, and you're just back in the States now, but how have things been going for you in terms of the last 6 months, pandemic type things? You sound like you had a lot going on. It's been kind of a lot of life changes.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys knew, where I met you was working at the Reebok World Headquarters, coaching there, and then kind of continuing to get from like a temp coaching position to full-time to team leader to head of the gym position. But I think when, with the pandemic and not being live in-person classes, I got an offer to go down to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands and train a family and then some other people that I knew and train them full-time. So, like multiple workouts a day, living with them in their guest house, which I'm sure if you could imagine if someone paying a trainer to live with them full time, their guest house was not a bad setup for me.
Right.
But down there training, I got a chance to train some other people too, kind of sparked my, everything back into fitness. I'd kind of gone down the private security side in Boston when a lot of people, when there was the protests going on. An old friend had reached out to me, so I was kind of going down that path. But it's really just been about fitness and getting back to training people in person. Really sparked my interest back up to where now I'm actually back in Boston. I've been here for a week and a half at my new role, which is the managing partner for Big Night Fitness, which I'm sure we can get into either right away or later on.
Yeah, we
can get there in a second.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because I'm interested to hear what that is. But yeah, go ahead, Dave.
But that sounds super interesting. But I want to get back to this family that has a personal trainer training them 24 hours a day. Like, is this the most fit family in the world, or what? Like, are they training for anything specific to have you on board with them 24 hours a day?
So it's unique, and I don't think I signed an NDA, but so the father is someone who I used to train when I ran the gym with Chris Irwin, who you guys had on the podcast. I listened to that episode.
Right.
Yep.
Speaking of private security, when you're sitting somewhere for 11 hours, I listened to every single podcast. You're being at the top of the list, but all the way down. And so he I wouldn't say lives the healthiest lifestyle. Being in the finance world, it's a lot of kind of high stress stuff. He's flying around to all these different places. And he made a bet with one of his traders. And I guess they've done a series of bets. And the bet was who could get closer to or actually qualify for the PFT, essentially the physical screening test to become a Marine or to get to boot camp in the Marine Corps. Not to go through boot camp, but to actually just pass the test, which is like push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and a 1.5 mile run. So are they the fittest family in the world? I would say objectively no. But training towards that. So he had made a bet with this guy and for an undisclosed amount of money. And so that was his kind of motivation. And also with, health reasons, he needs to start taking care of himself. And so, yeah, he was like, let's go. We can go full time. We can figure out some other stuff for you to do. It's
did
a
he win
really
the
tough
bet?
son. So the bet is actually, it got pushed back. The bet is Wednesday, the 28th.
Coming up. Okay, all right.
To Greenwich, Connecticut at 6:30 in the morning. We're going to meet at a track with this trader of his. And we're going to do, a dumbbell press overhead. We're going to do sit-ups and we're going to run 1.5 miles. And hopefully, we got him to the point where he could do all three of them. And he was kind of the guy who's like, He'd run a mile and a half in 15 minutes. And for most people, you're like, can't you walk that? But for him, he couldn't even tell me the last time he went for a run. When we first started, he couldn't run for more than a minute consistently. So it was a lot of work. And I know it's funny because I know you guys work with Chris Hinshaw, and I worked in the aerobic capacity with him. And so it was pretty simple, the application of it. It's like we need to find the pace he needs to run at, and then we just need to modify the rest time. And it was really cool to see that, because most of the athletes that I've worked with are usually on the higher level. Now, granted, everyone in the Reebok gym, there's all varying levels of fitness, but to see that work for him was really cool. And the first time he did it in 14:45, he's like, okay, we don't need to run anymore. I'm like, no, that's not quite how that works. So we tried to push him to get better and better times. So I can report back at 7:30 a.m. on the 28th to let you know if he passed.
Amazing. Or not. I'm excited to hear how that goes. And do you know if he has like an amazing coach too on his end, the other guy that's been training him?
I don't think so. I think that's why it kept getting pushed back to where it's like, oh, I can, I'm going to be in this city this weekend.
Right.
I'm looking forward to it. And I may or may not have 50% of the cash prize coming my way. So maybe that was a little bit, maybe that was an incentive motivation for me to stick with them throughout this, even though I'm back in Boston.
Good move.
Set them up with some incredible coaches down there for the 2 weeks that I'd be gone. So looking forward to it.
I feel like Conor was more and more talking about me. He said, he runs mile and a half in 15 minutes. He made 15 seconds improvements. I'm good to go. I can't remember the last time I ran either, by the way. So I just don't have that money. I just don't have that money.
Well, if you ever fall upon it, you know who to hire.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we touched on it a little bit, but there's so many different things you've been doing in the fitness world over the last decade or so. Obviously the way that we had met was at training grounds. We recently had a conversation with Austin Malleolo too about how we had met him out there and how you guys work so closely together back at Reebok headquarters. And it sounds like you're onto something new here. You had reached out to us last year about something else we can talk about with Watt on the Waves and everything. But I'm curious specifically about this new role that you have. You're managing partner with Big Night Fitness. I've never heard anything like this before. And I'm curious to hear what it is exactly and how you got involved with it.
Yeah, so I'll kind of start from the beginning, because even when I'm, calling my parents and letting them know what I'm doing, I'm like, I got to cut out like an hour to even just paint the picture in this. And so it started with, in the pandemic, the close down of gyms and the close down of a lot of nightlife and entertainment. So as places started opening back up, the last place that was going to open were these big venues where they were hosting, shows, DJs, live shows, clubs. And then as well as these boutique fitness studios were reopening, it was like the guidelines were so strict, normally where you could get 30 or 40 people packed into a cycle class, or you could get, however many people, you'd only be able to have a couple in there because of the distance that you had to have. So we had this idea with this group, Big Night Entertainment Group. And I've known them because I've trained some of their artists that have come into town, some of their celebrity DJs, groups, bands. So they would come down to Reebok, we would train. So I had a really good relationship with these guys, really, really good people. And I will say, I have to say that because working with DJs traveling around, anytime you went to a nightclub, you were like, oh, shit, like, here we go. We're going to go through, and there's a bunch of people that aren't necessarily the type of people that I'd like to be around all the time. And these guys were just the polar opposite. They did the right things for the right people for the right reasons. They wanted to celebrate accomplishments. They wanted to make sure that people always had the best time. And so when we talked about this, it's like, hey, could we host these fitness classes in your huge venues? And so we kind of connected them with some people. It started with this kind of trampoline class that we had at Reebok that is as ridiculous as it sounds. You're like, jumping on a trampoline, is that fitness? I mean, the person who had put this on does an incredible job. And kind of the same thing with the cycle classes. It's these kind of club venues that have these amazing sound systems, lighting systems, millions of dollars they can put into it that just a boutique fitness studio can't. So the experience was really what it's like, the entertainment and experience, while kind of straying away from the party nightlife side and including the entertainment into the fitness side. So the classes absolutely took off there. People loved it. People wanted more. And then as restrictions lifted, they're like, well, we have to go back to the nightclub business because that's where they make majority of their money. But as you can probably guess, mornings and afternoons aren't super popular in a nightclub. Most of it is just dead space. And so they were talking, hey, what if we kind of created this bridge between entertainment and fitness and started hosting these classes, but not just the ones we had, any and every discipline of fitness, to be able to come in and kind of sell this experience. And it's very, very different from what we do as far as functionality in gymnastics and weightlifting. And the real kind of like CrossFit definition of fitness is work capacity across broad time and modal domains. And now it's more so, let's get people in the door. If people are going to do this stuff anyways, we may as well be able to heighten the experience. So we reached out about a couple of different, I actually went in for kind of just consulting. They're like, hey, come on in when I was back in Boston for a week while I was still working down in St. Thomas. 30-minute meeting turned into 4.5 hours of just all these ideas. And they had made the offer. They're like, hey, you've been in the industry. I talked to them about Watt on the Waves, which is essentially like a microcosm of what we were doing, right? All different types of classes running all over the place. Luckily, their venues aren't on a boat. We don't have to clear customs to get stuff in there. There's a lot of easier ways to get it done. And so they hired me as a owner of Big Night Fitness, as a managing partner, to be able to bring people into their studios in these off hours, and then also the ability to highlight trainers. And I say that because I think in a lot of boutique fitness studios, trainers start to become bigger than the actual venue. And I think it happens in CrossFit, and I think it happens in pretty much every discipline, to where now, a coach at a gym or an instructor, they have this huge following. And it really doesn't matter the discipline they're teaching. People just want to be around them. They're entertainers. As we say, it's like educate, entertain, and inspire. And when these people are coming in and following them, it gets to a point where they're like, hey, I'm getting paid, $35 to even $100, $200 a class. But if I went to do my own thing, it's like, why am I not getting more of a rev share here? So our goal is to be able to bring people into these venues that we already have, that are already, the investment's going to get paid back from the actual nightlife. But to be able to say, hey, we want to give you rev share. We want to get as many people that want to follow you into these venues in order to highlight the trainers. And it's beneficial for us because we get to, push out, hey, there's this fitness instructor who's coming in. Fantastic. Let's go in. And because there's that kind of gap between nightlife entertainment and fitness, we're bringing in people who typically would never come to these nightclubs, and realizing, hey, maybe it's not just about, your traditional like partying and that stuff. It's this experience that we're selling, and now we're able to find a different avenue to do it. And that was the initial piece. And then it got to, what if we were to live stream a class, similar to any of these live streaming platforms, but instead of having music that's just playing, what if we had a world famous DJ spinning this class? And now when you do a Dylan Francis versus Ariana Grande class, when people are just playing their music, what if this artist was there, either participating or actually live spinning the class? That's like the entertainment side, to where people are like, I love this person's music. I'm going to sign up for this class because it's unique. We're getting more people moving because we got to mix that entertainment side into it. So that the live streaming things are something that we're setting up. We're looking forward to get going. And then as well as actually creating our own venues that are specific for fitness. So as opposed to having to set up like, wheel all the tables and bottle service stuff out of the way to bring in our cycle bikes or the yoga mats or the dumbbells for boot camp classes or whatever. Now we're going to have these spaces that we're building out, hopefully in 2020, that it's just the same style of nightlife classes, but in their own designated studios, running multiple classes a day, all throughout the day. It's just a ton of different ideas to where, since I've been back here, kind of making my own schedule is almost more difficult for me, because I'm like, I could do 1,000 different things. So waking up early in the morning to losing sleep at night because you wake up and you have this idea. And I just think that it's limitless as far as what we want to do, and the backing of this company that's already established to where we've already made, major moves. We're actually, I'm in an Encore Boston Harbor hotel right now. We just did some filming for in-room classes to where they have a club and a restaurant here. And my idea was, hey, you come in here. I mean, you can even see in the back, which way do I move? Welcome screen on a TV. You check into a resort. It says, welcome Dave, welcome Chad. You can go to the TV guide, or you can look at the restaurant list. What if there was a in-room fitness list? And you click on it and it pops up, and here's my stupid ugly face, representing Big Night Fitness. And I take you through a 7-minute, functional movement. It's a real actual fitness, but a quick class to get people moving a little bit, to whereas typically if you were to check into a Vegas hotel, that's really not the first thing on your mind. But how much better would you feel if you started off your morning, or you kicked it off before you were able to do these activities? So it's stuff like this that they open up these options for us, and it's great publicity for us. It adds something to a hotel that they don't typically or normally have, and it's working for a company that's like, you like that? Let's do it. We can get it done. We'll set up the meeting. We'll get the pilot episode going. And it's just been 1,000 miles per hour since I've been here, and I'm so excited about where we're going, and to be back just fully in the fitness realm, maybe in a little bit different of, training professional athletes and doing, heavy back squats and doing a lot of the stuff that we know gains, functionality and capacity and fitness, but more so just getting more and more people into this, highlighting trainers and bridging the gap between entertainment and fitness.
So yeah, go ahead, Chad.
It's just really, really cool idea. It's really interesting, and I'm sure it sparks a lot of questions for me and Dave and the listeners out there, and probably some obvious movements and things that you're doing inside of these nightclubs and the classes and in the like you said in the hotel on the hotel TV there. But tell us some of the things that you're doing. Are we talking air squats and burpees, or what's going on there?
Yeah, so the in-room stuff is the stuff that I know well, which is your air squats, your burpees, your push-ups, and that's one area of it. But we also have a yoga instructor to do a quick in-room yoga class that's on your TV, and it's really just about lowering the barrier to entry in order to get this stuff available. Maybe 100 air squats in a hotel room isn't going to completely turn around someone's life and save their life in the same capacity that you've seen in all of your gyms and your experience of fitness with these, 100-pound weight loss clients. But I assure you that if people are doing air squats when they wouldn't be, I'm a whole lot happier, and if we can get that to 300 to thousands of people a day checking in, like that could be the avenue of fitness to where, absolutely functionality and that stuff. And then also anything that you'd be able to do in a hotel room. I mean, how many hotel workouts have you guys done?
Lots.
Many.
Yeah. Countless.
Yeah. And you guys are motivated fitness professionals. I mean, absolutely top of the sport in your select discipline. And now I ask, how many times have you been like, man, I just really don't want to do anything? I can tell you, being on CrossFit seminar staff, traveling in hotels, it's like, I'll wake up to do a workout because I know I won't be able to. Sometimes that snooze alarm, or sometimes that alarm goes off a little earlier than you thought, to where it's like, oh man, it's, I don't know what to do, or I don't have this. And that's us knowing what to do. Now imagine someone who has no idea what to do, and they're like, I feel like crap, I want to do a workout, but I have no idea what I would do. Click on the TV screen and get some air squats out of the way. So yeah, functional movements to stretches to, really anything that people are going to want to click on that screen for.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. We had made a proposal to Hilton Hotels back in the day when they were sponsoring USA Gymnastics, and we had put a proposal together, have the USA gymnasts doing some in-room training type of stuff too. I think it's awesome. It's something that, it seems like, we're talking about how many times we've traveled and gotten hotels and got workouts in, a ton, but how many times you go to the hotel room or to that gym and see the other equipment just completely bare, that you're the only person in that hotel gym, because us in the fitness world, the only ones that actually use it. Most people that are in those hotel rooms are either, so focused on the other things they're doing, or they're intimidated to go to a hotel gym. Yeah. So being able to access those things from in the room where they're feeling comfortable, where they're not feeling like they might be judged or whatever it might be, probably will enhance their interest in actually saying, you know what, I am going to work out today because I don't have to worry about those external things kind of getting in the way. I can stay in my own little cocoon in the room and I can get my stuff done. So I think that's a huge motivating factor to potentially get more people active.
Absolutely.
So along with the moving in the hotel rooms, the gym stuff kind of really piqued my interest. It's how I met my wife. Sadie. Sadie was a club performer, an aerialist, a dancer for years in New York City. And we used to live at Hero Ballroom, which was like a really hot spot back in the day in New York. It was at Maritime Hotel. And at night, it was obviously a nightclub, and it was just one of the hot spots to be. But during the day, it was ours. Nobody used it. So we got to go there every day during the day, and it was our training spot. We got to work on our handstands. We got to work on our aerial work. We got to work on all this stuff. And it was amazing. We had this whole amazing space that was just not used throughout the day. And we would use it all the way up until, the bartenders started showing up and started getting ready for the night. And then we put all the stuff away and Sadie would perform at night. And it was like such a sweet little thing to be like, I can't believe we have this whole thing to ourselves all day. It was a little secret that we had. And you guys are taking advantage of that dead space and that dead time and saying, like, we can probably bring in a whole group of people to be able to turn this into something that actually generates revenue and gets people moving.
Exactly. And that's what we're hoping to do as well, is to create this template to where it's like a no-brainer for a club owner to be like, hey, this is fantastic. And for me, it's always been about movement and helping people and improving the quality of life through fitness. And it's come to where it's like, oh, this person got fitter. That's awesome. Good for them. But it's also, it's saved people's lives. It is in, in every aspect of it. I know what it does. And you have this whole group of people that may not be super fitness dedicated, that now we have the potential of reaching.
Now, with the fitness component of it, are you generating the programs? You're saying that you're bringing in a lot of like cyclists and trampoline, and like, who's doing the programming for the workouts there? And are you overseeing that, or are you just outsourcing that to a lot of other specialists or people that you think would be the right type of fit for that environment?
So it's a little bit of both. I think the oversight is my responsibility. And to make sure, hey, if this person is going to be in one of our venues, we need to make sure that it's not, one, something that's just wildly unsafe, but two, it's something that people are going to want to do. It's these already established trainers, to where I'm not a specialist in cycle. I'm not a specialist in most of the disciplines that we're bringing in. But if someone's like, hey, I'm really interested in coming in and joining this, I think I have had enough experience to know the care of a trainer and the efficacy of a trainer really by statistics on how many people are showing up at their class. If every single time people are nonstop at your class, it may not be because you're the best instructor in the world, and maybe that's where I can come in and help them with the programming, but it is someone who does have enough care to give it back to the people that are showing up to their classes. So I'm seeking out to find the best in each specific discipline, whether that's worldwide, whether that's someone who's like, hey, this is the best instructor in Sweden, or this is the best, this person runs this thing in Canada. It's like, well, let's highlight them. And no one signs non-competes. No one. Big Night Fitness is not a discipline of fitness. It is a way for us to highlight in any of their 17 venues that we have around the Northeast area, to be able to like, hey, let's let this person put their show on display. Let's give them a kind of a bigger area to, one, host more people, but two, to trying to look for like the words to say here, to highlight them as trainers, to get them more exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And if people come and the class is like, ooh, this wasn't really what we're looking for, the people weren't satisfied at the end of this, it's like participant satisfaction usually speaks volumes for the quality of the class.
Mm-hmm. So which ones have you found so far to be the right fit? You mentioned cycling, you mentioned trampoline, but are there ones that you've already deemed to be like, all right, these are obvious areas where we can focus on finding the right trainers? and other ones that you think, might have worked out well, but end up being misses?
So, I mean, we're like a week and a half in right now.
Okay.
And throughout the pandemic, it was really the trainer's option. That the trainers would reach out. They would say, "Hey, here's my following. Here's what we're doing." And it's like, great, let's either go check out their class or check out videos of pop-up events they've done in different places. And now you can do it here, to where, like I was talking about before, most cycle studios, I feel like, have gone down the path of, hey, let's get some dark, in a dark room, some cool lights, a great sound system, and run almost like a cycle class in the club. And now we're like, well, we have the club stuff. They have the multi-million dollars they've dumped in every single one of their facilities, to where it's already pre-made for it. And if someone wants to run a class, we run it. It's successful, fantastic. We're there. We're front facing to make sure we are there to support in any way. But outside of that, it's really just participant. It's really just bringing the people in, and those people are reaching out to say, hey, I'd love to try this out. And I'm not going to be one to be like, oh, your class isn't really what we're going for here. It's like, let's bring them in. Let's see if we can highlight these trainers and give back, to where, with a rev share, you're obviously going to push to get as many people and friends as you can to come in, which benefits us to, highlight our facilities. So it's kind of been just announce what we're doing and see who wants to be involved. And we've, I've had some of the top instructors in their discipline in Boston reach out directly, or someone that sees it and they're like, hey, I have this instructor who I would love to connect you with that would be a part of it. And so we reach out, show up at facilities, and for the most part, I'm not trying to take people away to be like, oh, you should never coach at this place again. Like, let's continue to highlight these trainers.
Well, it seems like that's super unique new avenue for fitness to be able to, like you said, just get people moving and give people another avenue to be able to say, okay, I'm not super comfortable being in the gym or whatever it might be, but the more people we can get moving, I think just society in general is going to be better off because of it. Another area that you have kind of made an impact that's kind of fairly unique is with Watt on the Waves, and you've had a big hand with that. And I know we had a pandemic hit last year. I'm really excited. Myself, Chad, and Chris, we're all really excited to be able to come to our first. I know Chris had done it before, but it would be new for us. And I stupidly accepted in the week that my newest daughter was supposed to be born. My wife, I know, is secretly, maybe not so secretly, excited that it had to be canceled because I was here for my daughter's birth. But I'm upset that I wasn't able to experience it and be on the boat and actually be a part of this really unique fitness adventure. Can you talk a little bit about Watt on the Waves and what the next chapter is, if you guys are actually anticipating starting back up again?
Yeah, for sure. So Watt on the Waves was almost a similar concept, to where we have these cruises, and you can really ask anyone. They're like, what typically type of people go on cruises? You think all inclusive, drinking, eating, not usually a lot of physical activity. And in St. Thomas, they actually said people who go on cruises are newlywed, overfed, or almost dead. And I don't want to make fun of anyone who's going on cruises in that, but what I see in that is lack of movement, a lack of nutrition, and a lack of physical activity. These people that have been sedentary for a long time, and it's like this just kind of highlights and allows them to do that. So if we could get a whole new group of people to come on and still have the fun parts and pieces of it, but skipping ahead to our actual Watt on the Waves class, I can promise you there has never been 50 people on a pool deck with PVC pipes in their hands, learning how to clean and jerk and snatch, learning how to pull under a PVC pipe on the deck of a cruise ship. And then it's like, okay, now it's, it's party time. Now you have all these different type of fitness events, to where I was nervous at first. Granted, I wasn't the one investing the millions of dollars into it, but as minority owner with my partner, Austin, it was like, are people going to want to do this? This is like a higher price point than joining a CrossFit affiliate. There's thousands of dollars going into this, so we want to make sure that the experience is there. And the cruise, which it was like nerve-wracking all up until it was done, because you're putting out 1,000 fires everywhere. These classes were completely packed, oversold. There's people who were, they were your bikini and fitness models that came on board that were now joining all of these different classes because it was available. And so there is that need for it. And why it was such a cool idea for us is that these other cruise ship companies were like, whoa, you're typical passenger, like you've completely flipped the script to where in a normal cruise, some of the statistics we had were 80% of people who were going on cruises had been on one before. 20% were new. Ours was flipped. 80% of people had never been on a cruise before. 20% had. People were posting comments like, this is the only cruise I've ever been on where I actually lost weight or I didn't gain. It was something crazy. There was a stat that was like an average cruise, someone gains 10 pounds in like a 5-day period of that. Jeez. And of course, these statistics are wildly skewed, but you could see and you could imagine how that would happen. And now to where it's like, we're not taking the fun away from cruise ships. We're not taking the fun away from the club atmosphere with Big Night Fitness. We're just introducing a fitness component to it, to where you get to see, hey, I can almost celebrate my fitness more because I'm able to do, I'm physically active on this. And we had, first stop, you'd get off and you'd go down to, there was a CrossFit gym, happy hour CrossFit. And we had heavy barbells there to where people were cycling in for 45-minute classes all day, all sold out classes to get their hands on a heavy barbell and then go enjoy the rest of your day. It wasn't a fully immersive, like all you're going to do is work out. There's no access to party, fun, alcohol. If it's your choice, you had access to it, but now we're just introducing fitness into it. And it was, at the end of it was insane. And it was like, the investors and the CEO of it was like, we got to get on the next one. And then cruise ships were like, hey, we'll give you a better deal here. We have more space on this, because they wanted the demographic of people we were bringing on board. And with, barbell classes, dumbbell classes, kettlebell, sandbag on the helicopter pad was one of my favorites, because it was just so unique to where it was like, people would look at those pictures like, what? Like, how did this even happen? And, the work that went into it was crazy about getting everything onto this cruise ship. But just seeing the people celebrating their fitness was the reason why year 2 happened. And the reason why we're still a company. It's still something to where, as people come back, we almost, especially with the health guidelines and people understanding that with the pandemic, that the best defense you have is, going off of in the CrossFit lecture, what is fitness, is a hedge against sickness. By building this enormous capacity to be fit, you're now protecting yourself against something like this happening. So it almost encourages more people to be like, hey, celebrate this, but also know that there can be a balance to where it doesn't have to be this 10-pound gain or this huge drop off from your, wellness to sickness level after you go on a cruise. There's almost more of a need for it now, to where people want to do this stuff. And I think more people, if I could, I would never go in front of a Zoom again and coach a fitness class.
Yeah.
But if it's going to have people show up to understand their need for health, I think that's the biggest kick now. And that's also what's facilitating our need with Big Night Fitness, is people realizing, hey, I got to move. I got to get involved somehow, or I got to, shave the COVID-15 or the weight I gained during this, because that's just a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for, chronic disease.
So
and as much as, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting what you're saying, because like obviously cruises were hit pretty hard by the pandemic, specifically, when pandemic hit, and there was a big issue with one of the cruise ships having a lot of the infected people initially, and it seemed like the cruise industry was going to be impacted for quite some time. But you're saying is that this is actually something, the fitness component of what you're adding to the cruise industry is actually a way that they're combating, or the way that they're saying, hey, look, we're better than what we were beforehand. This is a new factor that we can add to the equation of what it's like to be on a cruise. You can become actually healthier after this, and not just say, this is a vacation, I have to go home and start working out again. This is actually something to make you better by the time you're done with this.
Yeah, and that's where I think the need is. Maybe the cruise ships haven't like right now they're just trying to get people back on board.
Right.
But when I was down in St. Thomas, it was crazy because normally it's like you don't drive downtown on cruise ship days, because there were some days where there were anywhere from 7 to 13 cruise ships that came in. We're talking like 40 to 60,000 people from the morning that would arrive on St. Thomas and then leave at night. Were a ton of people on there. But now it's like you almost have to offer something different. You almost have to offer something to where it's going to encourage people to come back on board. And I know traditionally the people that came on board, you know, if you look back at the videos, it wasn't everyone who was just obnoxiously fit. Sure, there was some people on there. You know, we had guys like Rich Froning on board, where you see that video and you're like, oh, this cruise isn't for me. And then you see the people that are like, hey, I don't even care about your, you know, the CrossFit side of it, or the, you know, any of these different, you know, weightlifting or gymnastics, you know, seminars that you're running on board. But if I get a chance to work out and then I can be a little bit healthier on this, it's just a little bit more motivation. It's just like a little bit more push to get people to go down that alley, rather than it being like, hey, we're just going to go back to, you know, what we normally do and what typically worked in the past. I think people are going to have to change.
Yeah, I'm sold. I'm sold. I love the idea of either joining a class and getting a workout in, or coaching a class and falling right into the nightly festivities. In fact, that first beer will be my protein shake that I take for post-workout recovery in that kind of situation.
It's funny because I've said this before and people 100% of the time take it the wrong way. I'm like, if you're gonna drink a beer, there's really not a better time than directly after a workout, if you're going to drink a beer. And everyone always takes that as drink beer after a workout. You're like, no, I'm saying if you do that, that's not the best thing for you to drink after a workout. But if you are going to, the timing afterwards, I mean, that comes down from like the old, what was that, Pumping Iron, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, drinking beer after a workout. And then everyone's like, oh, I need to drink beer after a workout. And you're like, it's not exactly what you're thinking. But yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've said the exact same thing before. And I have to ask, talking about beer, I know you're a beer drinker as well. What is your favorite? What's your go-to?
Miller Lite.
Miller Lite. I can hang with that.
I know that a lot of people are, you know, craft beer is something that over the last decade, you know, there's the amount of breweries and craft breweries. And my brother would kill me for saying this. He owns a craft brewery down in Costa Rica. He has a bar restaurant called Fuego. And, you know, they make just incredible craft beer. And I'm like, I can have one of those. But I'm not a typical, I don't go home from work and crack open a beer and drink one or two of them. And that's not to say that's not a better idea, but I'm more like I'll go 3 weeks without drinking at all, and then have, you know, 19 Miller Lights in the night. I mean, maybe that's just my style.
You're evening out. Yeah, that all evens out. So you're averaging 1 or 2 a day.
Yeah. If we're going to talk about like a month average, I still think I'm doing pretty well on that. But I've always loved Miller Lite. We have a group of guys down here that almost made it a joke from this old show, Newlyweds, with like Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson. And Nick Lachey always drank Miller Lite, not realizing that like one of his farms that their family owns supplies the hops for it or whatever. But we'd always start calling them Nick Lachey's. And then from there, just like I just couldn't go to anything else. If I didn't have an option, I could make do. But always been a light beer fan, always been a Miller Lite fan.
Nice.
Chad, what's yours? I think we might have talked about it on the air before, but are you still a Shiner guy?
It's been Miller Lite before. I still love Shiner as well, but my go-to is right now is PBR.
Oh, PBR. All right.
See, that's right down the same alley.
Yeah,
Shiner
absolutely.
Box, I can go with the Shiner too.
Yeah.
And that's like a southern. It's
like a Shiner, Texas. Yep, it's Texas.
Yeah.
We always have a 6-pack of Shiner waiting for Chad when he shows up at Power Monkey Camp. It's like the way that we ingratiate ourselves to him to make sure he wants to come back again to the next camp.
That's right. And nobody knows that while I'm teaching my station, I'm not drinking coffee. I'm drinking the Shiner. No, I'm kidding. That's not true. I saved.
He waits till after the station.
After, and then directly after the station as my recovery. Absolutely.
Like a true professional.
Yeah, true professional. We also got the okay. We had our Dr. Jamie Shear on a couple months back, and we were talking about some of the so-called bad habits that we have with our diets. And Chad got the okay from Dr. Jamie to be able to have his 2 beers a night. And she said, you know, that's probably better than having 2 sodas a day, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
It's better than having 2
absolutely.
sodas. Like, yes,
Yeah.
well, I will continue to be having my shot
No,
here.
no doubt it's better than 2 sodas, but
Oh,
I still think
absolutely.
Conor's on the right track as well, because 19 in a night is, as long as that's once every 3 weeks, that's about, that's a good average.
It's
It's a
right
good
there,
average.
yeah.
What's your favorite, Dave?
I'm not a huge beer drinker, to be honest with you. This is where me and Chad kind of have a little fight on this. I like wine, to be honest with you. My Italian roots definitely push me towards the wine side of things and a beer side of things. I didn't start drinking until I was in college anyway, and at that point, I was not a big beer drinking kind of guy. But I live in Portland now, where there's a craft brewery on every corner. It's more prominent than Starbucks, so I come in contact with quite a few different craft breweries out here.
Yep.
What's your wine of choice?
It depends on the season. I have been really getting into Amarones and Valpolicellos recently, which is a northern Italy wine, eastern coast of Italy. And last time we were out there, I had a buddy of mine who's an affiliate owner and a sommelier. So he was an affiliate owner and a sommelier, and he took us to a few wineries up in that area, and they were just like incredible. So I've just been loving some of those. They're not great for summer heat type of wine, but they're excellent. Very, very good.
And after you announced that, their stock just went through the roof.
Exactly. There you go.
So on the coaching side of things, we talk about like some of the events and everything that you've been doing, but at its core, you're a coach, man. You've been doing that forever, and you coached at Reebok for a number of years, and you've had a hand in helping so many people become much more fit, both on, like you said, the people that can barely run for a minute all the way through to CrossFit Games competitors. I'm curious, what in your mind, what makes a good coach, and what separates kind of someone that you think can hold the attention of a full class, or be able to kind of become an upper echelon kind of a coach after your years of experience?
Yeah, and I love that question, because the first thing that comes to mind is always going to be my answer. And so when anyone asks, like, hey, what does it take to be a good coach? And it is care. It is giving a shit about the people you're coaching, because that leads to so many other things. Because I've cared about people, and I had someone come in that maybe I didn't have the answer to one of their questions, I would find it. I would take more courses. I would study. I would go to the gymnastics courses, the Olympic lifting courses. I would go to everything and gain as much knowledge as I could, not because I wanted to put it on my resume, because I wanted the information to help people. And it doesn't matter what discipline of fitness you're in. If you care, you can't fake it. People know that, and they want to come back to you because they know you care. Now, having an introductory level of education on it, and not try to focus on, hey, I want to create this business to make money. But after you care, you're like, how can we continue to do this? And by seeking to find an avenue that creates the most amount of profit, I don't think is a bad thing. But those people will be the most successful if they continue to care. If you care about your clients, you care about their needs, you care about them more than you care about the things that you need yourself. I mean, how many sleepless nights have you guys had, or clients you've taken on, or spreading yourselves thin because someone wants to do a class here or there because you want to help people? It's like that care component is so important. And I think sometimes it's lost with value of education, because if you can't take this extreme bit of knowledge that you have and have the care to break it down to a smaller, more digestible, palpable level for people to understand or want to do it, then it's going to kind of fall on deaf ears. Where you've got to care about people, and you got to find different ways to get that information to them. Not everyone's going to be, this top level, super high energetic, just fun, get the whole crowd going type of coach. But when you find that niche, when you find what makes you, people can tell if you care or not. You can pretend to be super high energetic if you're not, and people will see right through it. But caring enough to figure out how can I get through to people, and how can people understand or listen to me best, I think is also a component of care.
Yeah, I 100,000% agree. I think Chad will probably say the same thing, and it's what we preach endlessly at Power Monkey and our camp and everything, is once people come through there, they're part of our family, and we want them to know that we're there as a continuous resource moving forward. And I think we go out of our way to be able to show people that we care, and that it's what I think separates the people that have longevity within the sport or within the coaching world, to be able to create relationships with the people that they work with, and to be able to say, you guys are more important than just, a paying member that comes in here every day. And I think that absolutely is something that really separates someone that's going to have longevity as a coach versus someone that's just trying to get people through the door.
I think another thing that I think goes hand in hand with that is that a question that I often hear asked, and a question that is really big in the fitness industry, is, do you need to be a top level athlete, or do you need to be the super jacked, shredded, muscle grinding cash badger in order to get people in your gym? And I think my answer is a little bit different than some people's, because some people are like, no, you have to have that care component. But I think what goes along with that is you being in the constant pursuit of following what you're saying and what you're telling people to do.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, and I can reference you guys in this. I know that you're incredible coaches because I've worked with you. I've worked with you guys on many different levels, on personal with my own training for the CrossFit Games, but also with the training camp, training grounds, with what you guys are running with Power Monkey, with all of the information that you put out. You're extremely knowledgeable, but I can promise you, and as you know, that being top level Olympians in your respective sports brings people in the door. So can you be an effective coach without being the top level athlete or without being incredibly fit? Sure, you can be. But if you can get to that level as a coach, or be in the constant pursuit of that level, that's only going to open more doors for you. It's only going to get more people to come in and say, I watched this video of Chad Vaughn clean and jerking 315 pounds in 8K slow-mo video on CrossFit.com. I want to learn from him. And it's like, you didn't say, hey guys, this is how you coach clean and jerk, but people see that, and they see the relentless pursuit of it. And I think that by continuing to do that and continuing to chase perfection yourselves, it only allows more people to come in, to where then you can give them those beautiful nuggets of information and express how great of coaches you are with your care. But also, for any trainers out there, no, you don't have to be, but gosh, does it open a whole lot of windows and a whole lot of doors for you to get to more people.
Yeah, I love it. That the big takeaway there is practice what you preach. And we talk to people all the time, and we're teaching, saying that if you want to be the best athlete you can be, we recommend that you treat yourself as a coach a little bit. You watch other lifts, you observe, you listen to other coaches coaching. You're going to learn more and be able to move better and be a better athlete. Same thing for coach. If you want to be the best coach that you can be, I need you to get into this position, and I need you to get familiar with it. And I need you to get familiar with what I'm saying to you and the cues that I'm using for you as an athlete, so you can better understand them and deliver them to your athletes as well. So I think it goes hand in hand with practicing what you preach and being an athlete to be a better coach. Absolutely.
Chad, both of us have kind of gone through this endlessly about, I know we've had other podcasts where we talk about, like, if you're a great athlete, does that automatically make you a great coach? And vice versa. Or a bad
coach. Yeah.
Or a bad coach, right. Yeah. Or if you are a, just someone interested in fitness but wants to become an amazing weightlifting coach, is that possible? Or do you need to have the, expertise as being an athlete to be able to actually pursue that? And I think we've come, I don't know, maybe the last time we had this conversation was with Tosh, I think, as he asked that same question, right. Or we were talking about whether or not our experience led us to believe that, being an elite athlete allowed us to become great top tier coaches, or if that's a necessary component. And I think we settled on that, basically like an interest, a love for the pursuit of this, a constant willingness to learn. And like we initially talked about, this caring for the individual that you're working with are really at the core of what it means to be a great coach, as opposed to the ability level as an individual. And that's a nice additional component, but not necessarily a key factor in being an elite coach.
Yep. Yeah. And you guys referencing Brian Chantosh?
Yeah.
and he has no idea who I am. We've met in person a couple of times, but I love listening to everything he puts out. And what drew me to that is by Googling Brian Chantosh, and his Wikipedia comes up, and you read the citation of some of the medals that he's gotten, and you're like, this is a superhuman.
He really is.
I would listen to unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then that's what gets me in the door. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this person's actually giving real advice. He's been there, done that, yeah, but he's giving real advice that is actually going to help people, and he cares about the people that he's working with. And I've also met people who have incredible accomplishments, but it's used in a different way, to where it's like, because I've had these, listen to what I'm saying. And maybe the things that they're saying aren't the best. Maybe they're not now practicing what they preach. They've had this incredible thing happen to where they almost take advantage of it. The same thing as, with running coaches. I've heard, Michael Johnson, who is one of the fastest humans alive. Someone was telling me, and I don't know firsthand, they're like, one of the worst running coaches, like isn't exactly sure how it happened, but maybe didn't take the time to study exactly how to make people better. But people are going to be like, oh, this is the fastest man in the world. Yeah, let's listen to him. And I don't want this to be, this is hearsay for that. But, and I'm sorry if I'm sure he won't hear this, but I'm sorry if that's offensive to that. But there's a lot of people out there that just use that clout to say, I'm going to sell a shit product because I want to make money off of it. And when you meet guys like Brian Chantosh, you're like, man, this guy like really cares. He even like, I don't think he would like that I started listening to him because of his accomplishments. He wants to be, and it's similar with Chris Irwin. Chris Irwin wanted no one to respect him because he was a active duty SEAL for 16 years, another 4 years in the reserve SEAL teams. Like, he doesn't want people to respect him and listen to that. He wants it's the last thing he'll tell anyone. He wants to give people all of this knowledge and insight on how they can help each other. And then you find this stuff out and you're like, and it's a bonus. So there is that component back and forth. And I just want to say it's so cool. I haven't listened to that episode yet that you had with him.
It's a good one.
Man, that's great. That's on my to-do list on my ride back home.
Excellent. On the coaching side, do you have are you actually coaching anymore right now, or now are these big projects kind of taking over? You're moving into a new role completely?
So it's funny. I still have a couple of professional athletes that I train for, which is obviously a lot different than training for the client that I was with down in St. Thomas. And sometimes during their season, right, during the sport specific season, I'm not doing a whole lot of that, but still programming. I'm programming and coaching an athlete who reached out to me, who is competing for the first time in the CrossFit Games in the adaptive division.
Oh, awesome.
She has been an absolute weapon for the last 10 years because she wants to be fitter, not for the purpose of competing. And now that this division came out, she emailed me, connected through Austin, just being like, this is my first competition. It's like, your first competition is the CrossFit Games. That's everyone's dream. My goal was to compete as an individual at the CrossFit Games. And let me tell you something, it's never going to happen. I was close, but it was never going to happen at that point. So the fact that she's there and to get in and dig in now, and I've learned so much. Every single adaptive athlete for the upper body impingement or upper body, adaptive athlete, all of you, I look at your Instagrams now because I'm trying to find everything I can to help this woman. Her name's Elizabeth Bride. And so coaching her, and then with Big Night Fitness too, Big Night Entertainment Group is a big company. So because of the resources that they know as coaches, which I actually coached some of them before I even started working for the company. Now we have a couple of days a week where we run these fitness classes, and it's like growing and growing and growing. And I think it's very important to keep that tool sharp, but also it's like, that's something that I can give back on top of, trying to spread out through there. So I'm going to be running for Big Night Fitness, actually, some of the classes out of their venues, just to try to bring some more people in and give maybe a little bit of a different dynamic too. As you know, that the boutique fitness studio kind of vibe and what they push is a little bit different than my background in CrossFit, being a certified CrossFit trainer, level 1, level 2 CrossFit seminar staff. If I could give a little bit of a different dynamic on there, I'm just glad it wasn't me. Jordan sent that thing out before. He's like, silence everything.
Yeah. I'm going to blame it on Chad.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Chad was actually the one who called you.
Exactly.
So I'll still be coaching in that aspect. And I don't think I'll ever go the rest of my life without doing some in-person coaching at whatever level that can be. I'm so grateful to be able to even have access. That's what, being at the Reebok headquarters gave me, with competing and training with and coaching for some of the top athletes in CrossFit, and then other people coming in to professional hockey players, professional football players, professional lacrosse players. Like that's what gave me that access. And sometimes when people ask me too, like, oh, how do you train these people? It's like, well, I know how to improve GPP for sure. Like that's, it's very little contested anymore that CrossFit is an effective way to improve someone's general physical preparedness. But now with the sport specific stuff, it just inspires me to learn from other trainers who have been doing it their whole lives, or people who have, to figure out what works and what doesn't. And I always try to be straightforward, to be like, hey, this is my realm that I know I can improve upon, and I want to be able to help you with this. But I'm not proven. I can't say, hey, I'll take any hockey player and make him a better hockey player. But so far with the training that we've done, and almost like a slight trial and error, it's worked. So continuing to train, my goal is to keep training, is to continue to be a resource for other instructors too, regardless of the discipline, to give them the knowledge that I've only gotten from other people. Everything that I've said so far or trained, I've stolen. I didn't make up anything. I wasn't like, hey, we should, do a periodization of a squat cycle to get you stronger at squatting. Like, I didn't make that up. It's everyone should know that. But from learning from other coaches and incredibly valuable assets from every discipline, including both of you, including Hinshaw, including everything, to where I can take that stuff and then give it to someone else, regardless of the discipline.
I love it, man. Well, I think the entire CrossFit and functional fitness community is better because of having coaches like you around. So the fact that you're still going to be coaching is a good thing for all of us involved. So I'm glad to hear that you're not going to be stepping away from the coaching side of things now with your big new roles with these new projects. I know we're taking up a lot of your time. I know we're coming to the close of our hour here, but you cool sticking around for another minute or two and just answering some quick questions for us?
Absolutely.
Awesome. First one is, what sport or discipline do you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics?
Oh gosh, that's hard. I think I prefer gymnastics for the reason that my mother was a gymnast in college.
Oh, really?
My dad was a traditional bodybuilder, but my mom was a gymnast in college, a very good gymnast. And I grew up, she was like a private coach, private trainer for gymnastics. So I grew up running around in these big open gymnasiums, just looking at people and doing everything that they were, or trying or attempting to do everything that they were doing. But when it came to the technical complexity in weightlifting, it maybe it's my body type, but it allowed me to be better than some of the other athletes I was going against, who may have been stronger, who may have been faster, who may have been all of these things, but that the neurological piece that's involved in both with weightlifting ended up being a little bit more favorable while I was competing. So I have to, if I have to say it, I would say gymnastics, and I'll shout out to my mom for that one. But still thoroughly enjoy weightlifting.
Well, at least he's better than Austin. Austin just went straight in and just straight up said gymnastics, said nothing about weightlifting. So I appreciate your answer there, but it is a bad day for me. 2-0 for the day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what the number's at. There, should we even keep count anymore? I mean, it's not even fair at this point.
Probably better for me if we don't. Yeah, better for me if we.
Well, I mean, Austin can barely snatch 225, so maybe that's why he doesn't like doing it.
Well, he did say something about not liking the snatch, so he did. He
did, absolutely. Before you jump off, we watched the video today of you and Austin boxing each other, and it was absolutely amazing. What was the story behind you guys? I know it was probably for charity. You guys were raising money for a charity, but what went into you and Austin boxing each other? What was that all about?
Oh my gosh! So it was the highlight of my career at Reebok was being able to box Austin. Now, Austin and I are good friends, business partners. He has been just such an amazing role model to me. But if you've ever worked for him before, he works 100% of the time. So whenever I get like crap because I went out one night, because he'd be like, oh, you could have been doing this or that. So we're running a marathon for the Box Foundation, and that's a foundation that puts physical fitness and physical education back into schools, especially when funding is cut. Some of these inner city schools, when funding is cut, the first thing to go is physical activity. You and I were to decide that would be the last thing to go. And me especially, if I were to not have had PE and I had to sit at a desk all day, I would have been even worse at the normal stuff than I already am. But so Box is a free program for schools to get kids moving. So our goal was to each raise $10,000. And someone had mentioned it because we had a boxing ring up at the Reebok headquarters, the world headquarters down in Seaport. They're like, you guys should box. And I have a little bit more background in hand-to-hand combat and boxing and fighting. And Austin was like, I would do it. And I just kind of looked at him and I was like, we'll do a boxing match. And Austin's one of the people that if he says he'll do something, he'll do it. And so we organized the whole thing. And beforehand, he was like, you kind of got to like take it easy. Don't make me look like an idiot here. And it's also not for me to be like, this is my one shot to get back in it. Like, this is my, there's no medals given away at the end of it. And so it ended up happening. And we ran this event at Reebok. You had to pay to get in. There was an auction. One of the guys that I trained, Kevin Miller for the Bruins, who just recently retired, one of the best shutdown defensemen in the NHL, had a signed hockey stick that he gave that raised money. It was an incredible event. Austin trained for it more than I thought, and he also very much surprised me when we had this boxing match. And in the first round, I was like, I thought we were taking this easy, Austin. So then in the second round, I kind of came out with a little bit more heat. And so we finished this boxing match. He stepped into an area where he was not comfortable at all. The highlight of that for me is that this happened on a Friday. And on Saturday, him and I were working a level 1 certificate course, a level 1 seminar together in Boston. And his nose was swollen and he had 2 black eyes.
Nice.
So he had to literally go up and as the course administrator, go through this. And kind of another cool point that goes full circle is for that marathon, I had maybe raised half of my fund, so $5,000. And the owner of Big Night Entertainment Group, Randy, he told me if I ran the Boston Marathon in the bottle service girl leotard, that he would finish my fundraising dollars.
There you go.
So they have the, it's like the full leotard. It's like the low cut with like no sleeves on them. They made one that was a little bit bigger than the typical bottle service girl size one. They made one for me. It said the Grand Boston, which is one of their nightlife venues here. And I ran 26.2 miles in that leotard. And just like he said, he finished. It was like, almost like $4,500. He's like, done. And
amazing.
Put it into that. So kind of full circle with the type of company we're working for now. But that was fun. That was a great time.
Yeah, I recommend anyone going on YouTube and checking out the fight. It's pretty hilarious. But just some size difference there. How tall are you versus how? Because it's pretty evident. Just maybe you guys weigh around the same because Austin's pretty stocky. But how tall are you versus Austin?
So this is the beauty of it, is that I'm 6'1", 195 pounds. Austin is 5'1". No, he's like 5'6". And he weighs about 165. Height, yeah. I want to say like 170 to 180 maybe.
Yeah.
But the reach on us is that I have a long torso, short arms, relatively good for weightlifting. He has no torso and the longest arms you've ever seen, to where his wingspan, if you're going off like the Vitruvian figure of a perfect anatomy, his wingspan is actually longer than mine should be. And my wingspan is actually shorter than his. So I'm taller, I have the weight on him. But there were times in the boxing match where like we had both of our hands up and he wasn't even near me, and I would like get hit in the head by a right from him. So way different body types, but man, that was an absolute blast. That was so fun.
And that's definitely why he doesn't like snatching that body type that he has, for sure. That's a tough one to snatch with.
Right?
Yeah. But he's great at deadlifting.
Yeah, I love
perfect for deadlifting.
Yeah. Well, sorry for the little sidetrack there, but I appreciate the story on the boxing. We had to bring it up because we were just talking about it earlier today. But question number 2 for you. Any guests that you think would be great for us to have on the podcast?
Guests that would be great to have on the podcast that you haven't already had on. Is there another question that I can kind of think about that you can ask that I can kind of like think about that to come back forward?
Yeah. Yeah. How about books? Any books you've come across here recently that you'd recommend to the listeners?
Absolutely. One of my favorite books, it is, I want to say maybe 20 or 30 pages long. It's called The Message to Garcia. And I have a copy of it, and everyone that I allow to read the copy signs it and then gives it back to me. It is a book, and if I kind of give like a synopsis, it's just like figure out a way to make things happen. And it talks about the what your life will be like if you are willing to work hard. And there's an anecdotal story in there, but I think it's one of the most powerful books. The reason why I recommend it is because the barrier to entry is so low and so small to be able to complete this book that more people will read it.
Right.
That's one of my absolute favorites, and a recommendation. It's called The Message to Garcia.
20 to 30 pages. That's impressive. That's crazy.
Concise, to the point.
Yeah.
Love it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
wait. I need to learn from whoever wrote that. I need to learn how to be less and more powerful with few words, for sure.
Yeah, who was the president that said they can take 30 minutes to write a 1-hour speech, but it takes them 2 months to write a 30-second speech. It's like when you condense it to realize how to convey that message. I think this book just does it so well. 1 and 2, I'm sure obviously a lot of time went into the book, but if I could make a few $1 million writing a 30-page book, gosh, maybe that's what I need to get into too.
It's a good idea.
It is just, it's one of the best selling books. There's millions and millions of copies sold, but it's just so powerful. I recommend everyone reading that.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that recommendation, and we'll add it to our list. And if you don't have any podcast guests to recommend to us, that's okay. But let us know where the folks can keep up with you, Big Time Fitness as well, and any parting words that you might have.
Yeah. So Big Night Fitness is the Instagram handle, all spelled out. If you want to follow that to kind of keep up on what we're doing, we're going to launch our video about really what Big Night Fitness is for people who don't want to listen to an hour-long podcast. But it'll be like a quick video on that to keep up with me there. My personal Instagram, Conor T Murphy, CONORTMURPHY. You'll see all the fun shenanigans that we get into via fitness, via drinking Miller Lite, and just
there you go.
Kind of trying to figure out the best of both worlds on that. Outside of that, any other resources, I always love, everything that you guys have put out. I love the Power Monkey style, right? It was one of the first times to where it's like, hey, here's 2 of the best people. I also love that you asked that question, weightlifting or gymnastics, because traditionally it was like you either do one or the other. You don't do both of them. And the amount of people that you've impacted, the amount of people that I'll have conversations with, and I try not to be like a really big name dropper. Realize I said I try not to be. Sometimes, bring it down. Every single person that's just like, have you heard of Power Monkey? You've got to go to this camp. There's not a single person that's ever been like, it was okay. Everyone just has these amazing things to say because there's so many different avenues and so much wealth of knowledge mixed with that combination of just you guys giving a shit and caring about these people, that I think what you've done has helped inspire me to be able to bridge the gap between different avenues and disciplines of training. And I think as long as people keep an open mind, which maybe I haven't done so well in the past, of being like, it's got to be CrossFit, about getting people moving and caring about what their needs and their wants are, can really just get more people moving, more people into this physical training realm that has caused so much success and so much of a better lifestyle for everyone in there. So I guess my parting words is thank you guys, not just for having me on here, but for everything that you do with your training, with your athletics, with your background, with everything that you've done. Thank you, I think, is in order.
Well, thank you, man.
Yep.
Thank you. It was very kind We appreciate those words very much.
Absolutely. Appreciate those words. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take you as a recommended guest, and we're going to have you back on. And then also I want to hook up with you sometime, Conor, and we're going to do 19 Miller Lights in one night a piece.
Why don't we do it at Power Monkey Camp?
I'm ready.
Conor,
I'm ready
right now. We got to get you out to camp. We do it Friday night, and we see who the last man standing is.
I don't know. For Friday night, 19 might be pretty easy. That might be. We might need to up it.
You know how we do this? We have 19 beers, and then we put a boxing ring in the middle of the floor. And
I'm not as brave as Austin. I'm not going to box Conor. There's no way I'm going to step in the ring with that dude. But no, we appreciate you coming on. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we can hook up again in person at some point in the future. There's lots of stuff that we're all doing, and I'm sure we'll cross each other's paths at some point. And to our listeners out there, please keep up with Conor and Big Time Fitness, everything that he has going on. It's awesome stuff. Know you guys can benefit from it, and I'm sure there's those out there that would love to be a part of it. Also, be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Also, check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Ollie Chad. And on behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your host. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. And until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.